In the last video, I said we would finish up Huron Avenue. A lot of people think that Huron Avenue ends where Pine Grove begins, but basically Huron Avenue goes straight all the way to St. Clair River. In this 1867 map, you can see Huron Avenue where it starts here at Black River. There's Military Street Bridge. And then it goes up north from there through town, basically being the main drag of town, main street. And it goes all the way to St. Clair River. You notice that there is no Pine Grove Avenue there. Pine Grove came later as the city expanded. It's only fitting we end up with a very historical building here, a building over 100 years old, built in 1904. I remember it well because it was only about a block from our house, and we used to play football on the front lawn inside that round sidewalk. It doesn't seem very big, but when we were little kids, it did the job for us, and we had a lot of fun there. Of course, there was no trees or shrubs in the way then either. I remember it as Port Huron Junior College. Here you can see the inside of the class studying in the library. And then, of course, when all that was done, they graduated, and you could see them in line in procession out front. Before it was a junior college, it was the Maccabees building. It was a pretty popular postcard at the time, several different shots of it. This postcard gives you a good view of Huron Avenue and Pine Grove. And you can understand by looking at the previous map why Pine Grove was called Pine Grove with all the trees. It was cut out of the woods. In this postcard here, it looks like that grassy circle was cut right in two. The car here looks like it's in a driveway that goes from Huron Avenue to Pine Grove. And in this postcard, it looks like the horse and buggy could take the ride right up to the steps, right where the sidewalk is today. And through the years, people have had their pictures taken in front of the building, in their cars, and on their bicycles, on their motorbikes. I think they thought it made a pretty good looking background. So why would the Maccabees build a new temple when they had a perfectly good one just a few blocks down the street here? Well, the answer is this woman right here. In 1891, Bena Mae West was a 24-year-old school teacher in the K-Pac, Michigan area. It was a time when women had few rights, few opportunities for personal growth, and little financial value placed on their contributions to society. Women could not vote, could not serve on juries, and were generally unable to obtain life insurance due to the high mortality risk from complications of pregnancy and childbirth. She was determined to give women something of their own, an organization that would build their net worth by providing insurance for them, and also serve as a fraternal society of women dedicated to bolstering their self-worth. To recruit members and sell life insurance certificates, Miss West traveled alone, often by horse and buggy, throughout the United States and Canada, asking women to band together for mutual benefit, entertainment, and expression. Within 10 years, membership had reached 100,000. As the society grew, countless women were employed at the Port Huron-based home office and as state managers and deputies throughout the U.S. and Canada. The rapid growth led the Maccabees to build this second temple in 1904. The ladies of the Maccabees was the social arm of the Maccabees. At first, they weren't even recognized by the men members of the Maccabees. This social organization was different than the organization for the insurance part of it. The social certificate they had assigned said that they had all the rights except they didn't have the insurance rights that they had to pay for. When the ladies got together for their meetings, they had an opening song, as you can see here. We also had a closing song, and they had an initiation song. This insurance organization that Bena Mae West founded later became the Women's Benefit Association, and I think after that the Women's Life Insurance Organization. And this building is still in Port Huron today on Military Street. A summer camp opened in 1921 by the Women's Benefit Association. Thousands of children, most of them the daughters of WBA members, paid $8 a week to swim and play on the shores of Lake Huron. The camp was noted for its Japanese architecture, and it featured a network of boardwalks and graceful bridges over creeks and ravines. And today the property is part of the Lakeport State Park. Unfortunately, there's no marker describing its unusual history. This is where the building that we see today became a reality in this shovel-turning ceremony, starting the very building of the new modern Maccabees Temple. And here we see Bena May West, and also along with the trustees, and this fellow with the shovel and the hat on here, he's the founder of the Maccabees, Major Nathan Boynton. And Major Boynton lived not very far from this building here. He lives just down the street on Huron, and we'll look at that place in just a second. Nathan Boynton lived a very interesting life. Boynton was born in Port Huron in 1837. He became a Michigan politician, an inventor, an investor, a hotel owner, and a Civil War hero, as well as the founder and leader of the Maccabees. During the Civil War, he enlisted as a member of the 8th Michigan Cavalry. He rose through the ranks from private to major. As a lieutenant with a detachment of 100 men, he cut off the retreat and accepted the surrender of Confederate General John Morgan after his devastating raid through Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. He served under Burnside in the campaign of East Tennessee, and he was one of the first units that marched into Atlanta alongside General Sherman. Nathan Boynton would become as popular as any politician in Port Huron's history. He served an unprecedented 6 terms as mayor and won the 1894 mayoral contest by what was then a record margin. He also served 6 years on the Port Huron School Board, including 4 years as its president. He held patents for several inventions, including the Boynton fire escape, the Boynton hook and ladder fire truck, and a system of rope trussing for fire ladders. Fire departments in several major cities adopted his technology. But he was perhaps best known as the guiding force behind the Knights of the modern Maccabees. The plaque that's mounted on this stone in front of the building commemorates the life of Major Boynton. Boynton and his wife built this beautiful home that's still standing today just a couple blocks away from the temple on Huron Avenue. This is the last structure we'll be looking at on Huron Avenue going north. But there's a couple more things I would like to share with you about Mr. Boynton. The first thing I'd like to share is Boynton's part in the lynching of Albert Martin. The newspaper article read like this: Albert Martin, a mulatto who brutally outraged Mrs. John Gillis, wife of a farmer living near this city, was taken from the county jail at 2 in the morning by a mass mob and lynched. The mob consisted of anywhere between 50 and 100 men, mostly farmers from Kimball and Wales townships. They had used sledgehammers to smash through the front door of the county jail, and they overpowered the single guard and removed a terrified prisoner. He was a Canadian vagabond named Albert Martin, who was accused of assaulting the farmer's wife. They put the noose of a long rope which the lynchers carried and was slipped over his neck while he was yet in bed. The other end of the rope reached out to the street, where it was held by no less than 50 willing hands. With a blood-curdling yell, the mob started on a run. Martin was unable to regain his feet, and he was dragged through the sheriff's office out to the street and was dragged the approximate 3 blocks of the 7th Street Bridge. They had to turn 2 corners on the way to 7th Street Bridge. They went down Broad Street and then took a left on Ontario, and then right there at the corner where the First Baptist Church is, the poor man's head caught in the stone cuts in the gutter. No effort was made to extricate him, and the halt was only long enough to give a terrible tug on the rope by which the body was released. so I'm pretty sure he was dead before he ever got to the bridge. At the time, Boynton was the leader of the town guard, and the sheriff wanted his help in order to stop the mob, and so he was waken out of his sound sleep there on his home on Huron Avenue at 2 o'clock in the morning. They arrived on the scene just as a single shot was being fired into Martin's limp body. Boynton drew his own weapon, ordered the mob to disperse, and threatened to shoot anyone who disobeyed. He and the sheriff cut down the corpse. The lynching was never investigated, no arrests made, and the stain on Port Huron's reputation would be reported in the newspapers around the world. The second thing I wanted to share with you isn't quite as unpleasant as the last one. And this is when William Linton, who was a congressman at the time and a friend of Boynton's and also a fellow Maccabee, invited Boynton on a cruise of the Intercoastal waterway in Florida. They used the expedition to evaluate property along the proposed route of Henry Flagner's Florida East Coast Railway. Boynton bought 500 oceanfront acres, while Linton ended up with 160 acres on the inland side of the waterway. Boynton was so impressed by the natural beauty of what he saw, the year-round sunshine and pristine beaches, that he returned a year later with a group of colonists and built the famous Boynton Beach Hotel. Boynton Beach Hotel prospered, and for 28 years many of the same guests returned during the popular winter season. It supplied employment for most of Boynton's non-farming locals and was the winter's residence for Major Boynton's family. The town that sprouted up around the hotel became the town of Boynton, and later on became known as Boynton Beach. So from this to this, it all started with Port Huron native Nathan Boynton. In his final years, Boynton divided his time between Michigan and Florida, spending summers at his home on Huron Avenue and winters at the hotel. He died in this home on May 27, 1911. Family members recorded his last words, "I am tired. I'm ready to go." Next is one of my favorite places, Pine Grove Park. And the first thing we want to look at there is Ward Fountain. Now, I know most of you don't know what the Ward Fountain is in Pine Grove Park, but you're looking at it. This is the Ward Fountain, and also known as the Ward Gate. And you can see it on this postcard here where it says Ward Fountain, Pine Grove Park. And it was called a fountain because at one time these lion heads actually spewed water out of them into the basin. It's called the Ward Fountain because it was a gift to the city by Charles Albert Ward. Mr. Ward moved to Port Huron in 1877, and he erected the first grain elevator in Port Huron. He retired from that business in 1881. He became the president of the Commercial Bank of Port Huron. All right, let's enter Pine Grove Park through this arch. There's so many wonderful memories to see here and experience. But you know what? It's getting late. We're not going to have time today. So in our next video, we'll take a leisurely stroll through Pine Grove Park.